Welcome into Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. I'm Megan Payton. We are reacting to what was a very embarrassing, hard to watch overtime tie between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Detroit Lions. I mean, if we thought last Monday was bad, this was way worse. 16-16, the final score, the first tie in the 2021 season. The 0-8 Lions are now 0-8-1 thanks to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, that overtime was just one of the worst things I have ever seen personally. There was two fumbles. The Diontae Johnson fumble, obviously the Pat Freiermuth fumble was critical. It was so bad. And then, Minkah Fitzpatrick has that interception, but Devin Bush has the hold, so it doesn't count. A lot of things to go over, and there's plenty more to talk about from just the first four quarters alone. We are going to get into all of this, but let's just right now give our immediate blame to someone. Who do you blame for the tie? Because we are not celebrating a tie. I am sorry. I guess it's better than a loss, but I'm not looking at this as a positive thing for right now. So who does your blame go to? This is our pinned comment. So make sure you get your votes in. If you get the ad break right here, now is the time to vote on who you would like to blame. I'm going to blame a couple people, actually. My first blame is going to go onto the defensive line. Now, granted, they did start to step up in the fourth quarter and in overtime, but I mean, those first three quarters were brutal, and we are going to talk more about how DeAndre Swift just was able to run all over the Steelers defense. But I'm also going to blame Pat Freiermuth because the NFL is a competitive league, and so things like that matter at the end of overtime. You cannot fumble the ball. And it's so funny because I was actually going to stand up for Pat Freiermuth and say, why didn't we see him much during this game? I was watching it the whole time going, where is he? Why isn't Mike Tomlin using Pat Freiermuth, their best tight end? And you know what? Maybe that's why. Maybe in practice they saw something like that. And to be honest, I'm putting blame on him. That's how it goes. But before we talk more in depth about what occurred during this game, we do have unfortunate injuries to touch on. So let's get into that first. TJ Watt, obviously the most scary and, crucial guy to get hurt. He left with what we all thought was a knee injury. Now, Mike Tomlin has clarified that it's actually both, I believe, a hip and a knee injury. He's going to have evaluations on that tomorrow morning. I think that's what he was trying to tell us, but he did not come back in. He got injured in a sack that he had against Jared Goff. So if the Steelers are going to be without TJ Watt, this is going to be a massive loss. They cannot afford to lose, honestly, not only their best defensive player, but the best defender, in my opinion, in the NFL. So obviously we will keep you updated on him. Taco Charlton came in to replace TJ Watt. More injuries over here was Joe Hayden. He had a foot injury. He did not return. Kevin Dotson with the ankle did not return. And Trey Turner also had an ankle, did not return. So we saw guys like Joe Haig replacing Turner. We saw JC came in and replaced Kevin Dotson, and then James Pierre came in and replaced Joe Hayden. So it's really just a mess. If the Steelers are going to be struggling on offense, they cannot have all of these defensive injuries plus offensive injuries. It's a total mess. But what's not a mess, I do want to tell you guys about something great we have here at Chat Sports. That is BetUS. Maybe you're not betting on the Steelers, because I don't blame you, but BetUS is the sports book that we love here at Chat Sports. You can bet on any team you'd like. You can bet on any sport you'd like. If you're over the NFL, go bet on some college football. Go bet on basketball. I don't care what you bet on, but I know that they've got a great deal that will not last long. Go to chatsports.com/bet. Use promo code Steelers125. You are going to get a 125% deposit bonus. Turn $100 into $225. You can bet up to $500. I'm not going to do the math on that, but the more you put up, the more you win. And if you guys are new to BetUS, we've told you about this. We are probably not going to be doing this jersey giveaway for long because we are running out. But if you do the steps that we just told you about, signing up, using the promo code, put up $100, you'll get that 125% deposit bonus. place a bet on any game. Like I said, it doesn't have to be Steelers. Email us at jersey@chatsports.com and we will send you over a Steelers jersey because we are still going to be repping the Steelers here. You can have your choice between TJ Watt, Big Ben, and Chase Claypool still might be available. We've got some limited sizes, so let me know if you have any questions. But back to this really embarrassing game. I think one of the main problems, obviously, was that the Steelers could not stop the run. It was just brutal. And I mean, DeAndre Swift absolutely crushed them. And by the way, they had other running backs that they were using as well, but he had 33 carries for 130 yards, an average of 3.9, which actually does seem a little bit misleading. But I mean, Jared Goff rarely had to throw the ball. They were running like 3rd and 8 because our defensive line could not stop him. And I mean, sure, Cameron Hayward, if you look at this depth chart, I do like Cameron Hayward, so I'm not going to blame him. Obviously, Tyson Alualu not playing on IR. This is where we miss him a lot. Chris Wormley. I mean, I blame more than just these guys, though. I blame Devin Bush. I do blame Minkah Fitzpatrick. And the Steelers really just ultimately need to get healthy. They can't afford these injuries that they just had. And they also need Alualu and Tua back. This is guys that you cannot – I mean, if this is what your performance is going to be like against the Lions, and I'm not going to sit here and dog on the Lions because they hadn't won a game or anything like that, but this is a time where you know your starting quarterback's out. You've got to step up to the plate. And speaking of Big Ben being out, I mean, you guys wanted to kind of dog on Big Ben earlier this season. Now we're missing him because Mason Rudolph struggled in this game, in my opinion. He was 30 for 50 attempts, 242 yards, an average of 4.8, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Luckily, that interception did not end in any score points from the Lions. So, but I mean, Mason Rudolph struggled. That's the reality of it. And I mean, you want to talk about who your quarterback is going to be next year? Well, Mason Rudolph ain't it. I don't know who it is, but it's not him. And, you know, that's okay because Mason Rudolph is a backup. What can we expect? Also, he didn't know that he was going to be playing. So I don't want to put a ton of blame on Mason Rudolph because, you know, this COVID thing came up with Big Ben. He's not able to play. Now you've got to go with Rudolph. He probably didn't get, you know, a ton of reps during practice. So it is what it is. But now I'm wondering, in the rare case that Big Ben is not back next week, which I think that he will be, but if he's not, who should be backing up or starting, honestly, in that case? But in reality, who should be Big Ben's backup? If you think it should be Mason Rudolph type MR, or if you're saying Dwayne Haskins type DH. Now, I said this earlier in the season, just when we were talking about Big Ben not performing as well. I said I'd like to see more of Dwayne Haskins because he's a guy that we don't really know his potential. In Washington, he didn't have many receivers to go to. I think that we've already seen Mason Rudolph. We know what he can do. And so I don't blame Mike Tomlin for playing Mason Rudolph in this game, but I would like to see Dwayne Haskins just see what he can do on this Steelers team if Big Ben is going to be missing more time. Now, a guy we saw a lot today, and we kind of talked bad about last week because he had a terrible fumble last week. Ray McCloud, who we normally only see on special teams, but with Chase Claypool being out, obviously Juju's not playing this season. We saw a lot of Ray McCloud. He had 9 receptions for 63 yards. And I heard some negative things about McCloud, but I'll just say this. He fought hard during this game. I was honestly pretty impressed with him. He is not a starting receiver for this team. He really is strictly on special teams, and he stepped up a lot. So I'm going to give Ray McCloud some credit here. Diontae Johnson obviously was their number 1 receiver in today's game. 7 receptions for 83 yards. And, you know, that's great, fine. I mean, really, these receivers, they were stepping up because Mason Rudolph was throwing a lot of high balls. There was, by the way, a lot of terrible snaps by Kendrick Green. I'm just throwing that out there right now. The offensive line needs to get figured out because we have injuries already. We've got Dan Moore Jr. as a rookie, and Kendrick Green cannot have those terrible high snaps, especially when you've got your backup quarterback in. That's just a side note. James Washington, aren't we glad that he didn't get traded because he helped out the Steelers today with their touchdown, 2 receptions, 15 yards, 1 touchdown. So we didn't see a ton from him, but he came in when it mattered. So I'm glad the Steelers stuck with James Washington. Now, Najee Harris, always a good guy. And, I kind of wish the Steelers maybe would have utilized him a bit more. I'm not saying, use him instead of what Mason Rudolph, but once you realize Mason Rudolph wasn't doing it, all right, Najee Harris is a very impressive player, 26 carries for 105 yards. Lions defense isn't that great. I think we could have seen even more from him, but over 100 yards, that's great. I love Najee Harris. He's a great player. I'm impressed with him. But I am not impressed with this Steelers performance. It was overall just really bad. It was a hard to watch game, guys. I mean, that overtime, I thought it would never end. It was back and forth, and it looked, just sloppy mistakes that we can go into more. We're going to have overreactions. We're going to have a lot more to talk about with this game, but I do want you to grade their performance just immediately, what you're thinking. Mine's not high. Mine, honestly, is like a D. And I think last week I might have given them like a C minus, C plus, but you can't miss tackles the way that they did. It's just, you're not going to win football games this way. You're in a competitive division. You've got to be able to stand out. And I don't know if this tie is going to hurt them or help them, but it's not what you want. You want to win. And so I'm blaming a lot of this on the defense and obviously them having their backup quarterback in. But this, as I just said, it's not a game you want to watch. These are not, as NFL fans just in general, Steelers fans are not, you don't want to see this. It reminded me a lot of college football where, the guys are just making a lot more mistakes that should not happen when you're in the professional league. When you were in the NFL, I do not want to see that many mistakes. And it was on the Lions as well, but I expect more from this Steelers team. As I said, there's going to be plenty more to discuss about this tie game, 16-16, Detroit versus Pittsburgh. First tie of the 2021 season. Of course, it's the Steelers, but we're going to make sure you guys are up to date. So subscribe now. You do not want to miss out on any Steelers content.